Hello and welcome to our review of Deadpool and Wolverine, the only MCU movie dropping this year. This is a special little potty from me and Nam because we are face to face again for the first time in a long time. It feels weird, but oddly similar as well. Deadpool and Wolverine. This is one of the most anticipated movies by cinema goers for the year. It is about Wolverine and Deadpool crossing paths to defeat a common enemy. That's all we really need to say about it. And as a pre-warning, we're not going to be talking about any spoilers at all. So rest assured, you can find our take on the film without being spoiled for it, and then go and enjoy all the cool stuff in it when you go and see it. Otherwise, Nayan, first of all, how's it to be back face to face with me again?
Feels good. I can reach out and touch you now, where before I just had to touch my screen.
Please don't touch me.
Or I can smack you if you have a bad opinion, and vice versa.
I'll just get the fly spray out again.
Oh,
Or that stink spray, whatever it was.
fly spray straight at me. I remember those days.
Anyway, Deadpool and Wolverine, we reunited again at the screening last night for the premiere of it in Auckland. What were your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, it was good. We had a little pre-message from Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman before it, hyping up the movie and saying, let's fucking go about like 20 times. And that was a theme throughout the whole movie, LFG. But in regards to the movie, I thought it was good.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it. I think that's exactly what we needed. It was just a fun blockbuster. Marvel promised, or Kevin Feige said that it would be like 8 in terms of importance, and Endgame was 9. Oh, Endgame was 10 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Didn't quite feel it. Mind you, the post-credit scene for us got cut.
Yeah.
Don't know if that was on purpose or not, so maybe that would have
Mm-hmm.
had implications on what he was saying. But yeah, I thought everything about this film was good. There were obviously some bits that were a bit too much, such as, Deadpool being Deadpool. He's very hard as a main character, but it's nice to see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine there to balance him out.
Mm-hmm.
I think the chemistry between those two was really, really good.
Yeah. No, I would be on the same wavelength as that one. I think just with this, it's the middle tier of what MCU is in terms of overall quality. I think Deadpool's always going to be a character that's hard for me to enjoy. I liked him in the first one, and the second one was just too much. He's just the same. He can be extremely funny. There's no doubt about that, but he can be extremely unfunny where it comes to cringe jokes. And I think this movie, it has its fair share of jokes that just don't land. But then there's like jokes that like people groaned at because they were like offended. There was some brutal jokes in there. Some really good stuff. So I think this movie does its job, as you said, of just being a fun blockbuster. And that's all I expected it to be. I expected it to be, the multiverse shenanigans of the MCU, the multiverse saga is carrying out. And this is where we kind of see the biggest exploration of the multiverse so far. I think that'd be fair to say, eh?
Yeah, this felt like more of multiverse and madness than multiverse and madness.
Yeah.
This is what it should have been.
It should have been this, especially when you get to that final act and you see all that play along. I think it's just awesome. But yeah, how did you find Hugh Jackman back in the role and Ryan Reynolds obviously in the MCU game now?
Yeah, it's great. It's always great having Hugh Jackman back. He's like probably one of the best comic book actors.
Yeah, comic book actors, yeah.
Actors around. The fact that he's done it for over 20 years consistently at a high level, it's really good for him. It's like as if he never left, and it was awesome just to see him in that yellow suit as well, and everything else that happened after we first get him. I think his interactions with Deadpool was, like I said before, was really, really good. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman clearly have chemistry.
Yeah.
And just like us, so we're both Deadpool and Wolverine. So just like seeing like Deadpool trying to annoy like Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, and just him biting back was really, really good to see.
Yeah.
So it was good to see that. Deadpool in the MCU. I mean, he made a ton of jokes about it already. Some of them were funny, some of them weren't.
Yeah.
But I wonder, because we saw a bit in there, I wonder if it's just a bit or if it's going to actually play out in the future.
About him being in the MCU?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, that's the thing that I don't like. There's so many jokes about him joining the MCU that it's just like, okay, we get it. Haha, it's funny, Deadpool in the MCU. But, like, they keep kind of repeating the same joke, just told in different ways, which I found really annoying. I completely agree. Hugh Jackman, I heard a lot about his performance prior to seeing the film, about it being one of his best as Wolverine. And to me, they're all just really consistent. Logan obviously being the one that outshines all of them. And we know what happens at the end of Logan. That's not a spoiler. Do you think they honored the character of Logan and Wolverine without, I guess, ruining his legacy by bringing Hugh Jackman back to play, even though Logan was meant to be that last time?
I don't think they did. I think they obviously paid homage to him,
Mm-hmm.
and then they did their bit,
Yeah.
which was funny to see. And the way that they did it was in a really, really cool way.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Hugh Jackman came in as pretty much a similar Wolverine, but a bit more different, like in terms of trauma and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just gave another element to the level of how he can play Wolverine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. As for one of the issues that I had, the villain, very, very thin, not really explored at all. I don't really understand their purpose or why they did the things that they did. How did you find the villain?
Pretty much the same as you. Marvel always has weak villains. I mean, there's probably only about 2 or 3
Mm,
that are consistently good. You know, Thanos, Killmonger, and Loki.
Green Goblin,
Uh,
because he's technically an MCU villain now.
I wouldn't really consider that to be an MCU villain. But yeah, every other villain, there might be others, but every other villain has been pretty mid, and this just falls into that category of another mid villain.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get behind a hero's story when the villain is just bad. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
they just felt like nothing. Like there were some cool scenes of this villain like going in through their heads and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
other than that, that's probably the extent of their powers that we saw, and we're expecting something more major, and then it was just nothing.
Yeah. I felt like the villain should have been something more, I guess, cosmic rather than like a singular entity or person.
Yeah,
It should have been like the obstacle that they had to do was it should have been far greater than what it was, which is why I don't really understand Kevin Feige's comments about the importance of this on the MCU. We'll get to that, the MCU ramifications a little bit later without spoiling it, but Marvel's always had kind of at least recently, a really bad relationship with visual effects. We've seen it being really bad, and like, I guess this like Phase 4 and whatever is Phase 5. I don't even know the phases anymore, but yeah, VFX have not been good. How was this one?
I didn't really notice that. Well, there was obviously VFX in it, but
Mhm.
you don't really notice it that much because it's just always been based on the 2 characters. And it was just more of the action set pieces, really. I mean, the way that they did blood and stuff was good. I'm sure that was CGI'd or, tomato sauce. But that was really good. But in terms of the CGI, I think it wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as like last year MCU. Last year MCU was horrific.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was really bad last year. And some other ones before, especially with Ant-Man and stuff like that, and the Marvels. But with this one, I agree that it's not as bad, but there were some parts where I was like, "Oof, that's bad," and that usually comes during the action set pieces, as you said. But like with our main characters' movements, like Wolverine and Deadpool moving around in some of those shots, you can tell it's just all CGI. It's not moving naturally. There's no, I guess, tangible feel to it. Speaking of those action set pieces, though, how would you compare those to action in other Marvel projects?
I think I'm going to go based on the films from last year because that's what I can remember.
Yeah.
Way better. Obviously, it's a lot more technical skills rather than just throwing a punch or throwing a beam or ants.
Beam.
I thought it was really, really good. The choreography was good in those actual moments. The opening of the film was fantastic, and then the end fight was fantastic as well. So we had 2 really good action pieces there. But yeah, in terms of the rest of the MCU, I think from what I can remember, it's good. It's better than most films.
Yeah, I would say this is top tier MCU when it comes to pure action. You obviously got stuff like the Winter Soldier, that close hand-to-hand combat. I would say it's probably most comparable with the Winter Soldier. But then you got stuff like Infinity War, which just has like, black holes being thrown at Doctor Strange and a moon being crushed and thrown down onto Tony Stark. That kind of action is really cool. So I don't know where I'd put it, but I would say it's a competitor for a top 5 MCU in terms of action set pieces, and probably choreography as well. I think the action's super engaging. Really creative with it as well. It has it uses I guess good camera movements. It uses slow motion effectively to slow things down so we can see what's happening and stuff because these characters are obviously very fast and skilled at what they do. So yeah, I mean the action side of it is really good. It's a reason to go see it. What else do we have to do? The production design. Any sort of comments on that? The suits obviously is something.
It's cool. Yeah, it's always cool seeing Hugh Jackman in the iconic Wolverine suit. But other than that, Deadpool's was just pretty much the same. I think the production was just stock standard. Really,
Yeah.
it's nothing to be amazed about.
Well, I guess when it comes to the creativeness, we're seeing a little bit more of the multiverse and how that looks. Do you think that's, the set design is explored thoroughly, particularly when they go into, what do they call it, the Void?
The Void.
Yeah.
I think the Void is cool
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of Easter eggs, and then I'm sure when this comes out on
Mm.
physical media, that we're going to get all the nerds analyzing it, which will be pretty cool. But
Yeah.
like I said, it's pretty stock standard in
Mhm.
terms of MCU production design. It's just big green screen sets.
Yeah, I would say it was really good when it comes to the Void initially, and this is in the trailer, so this is no spoiler, but the 20th Century logo
Oh yeah,
being in there, it's just it pays homage to so many different things. You see, obviously, like MCU Easter eggs
Yeah.
spread throughout the backdrop of those, and I know a lot of them are quite physical, so they actually did some physical sets, and I think that's when you feel, I guess, the environment, and probably the better part of the film is when it's just Hugh Jackman and Deadpool's just going off on adventure, and it's just kind of them two. When the action comes, it kind of starts to, those sets start to bleed into the background. It's not really that, it doesn't feel that great in the end. Otherwise, the score, at least in my view, I don't really remember much of the score side of it. I know it has, pieces from Logan and other things from like other motifs from other characters spread throughout this to, I guess, add some I don't know what the word is, some power to who shows up. It's just hard to word it without the spoilers.
Yeah.
But that's all I can recall, other than like its own unique score.
Mhm.
How'd you feel about it? Did you get a sense of that?
No, not really.
Mhm.
It was cool, obviously, hearing some of those, callbacks from like Logan and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this was majority like a soundtrack sort of film. The opening
Mm-hmm.
sequence is one, the end sequence is one, and there's a lot more spread out throughout. Some of those soundtracks really worked, but then some just felt out of place where I would rather just hear a musical score
Yeah.
rather than a soundtrack.
Any specific examples on songs that you felt didn't work or songs that you felt did work?
I actually can't remember.
You can't remember?
I just know that I didn't like it when I watched it.
Well, you obviously got the Madonna one.
Mhm.
What is that called?
I don't know. I just know it.
Yeah, and it's on the trailer as well. That's obviously used in this. I felt like that worked. I think it just worked for what the film's tone was.
Me too.
And then I remember the NSYNC Bye Bye Bye.
Yeah.
That one's in it. I thought that one was cool as well.
That one was my favorite.
Yeah, it feels very much like Deadpool, and I think this is what this movie does great. Is it actually just it gives us a little bit of assurance that Marvel can play a little bit dirty. They can bring in this R rating to it.
Mhm.
It is the MCU's first R-rated film. Do we want more R-rated movies in the MCU?
Yeah, if they can get Blade right. And that's an obvious one, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see a Wolverine when the X-Men gets introduced.
Mhm.
Maybe more Deadpool in there.
Yeah.
It'll be hard for him to be an Avengers movie because obviously
That's when it's hard.
I'll be interested to see how they do that.
Mhm.
No doubt he'll make a joke about like Serena, be like, "Oops, I mean we already got a F word in Guardians of the Galaxy 3."
Yeah, and
So they might be able to like, I don't know what the limit is before it turns into an R.
I'm pretty sure it's 2.
So maybe he might just get 2 swear words.
Yeah, yeah.
And then make a joke, be like, "Oh, if I say any more, it'll be an R rating. You kids can't see it."
100%. Yeah, you're absolutely bang on with that one. I can just see it now. He's going to say it, yeah, and then he's just going to be like, oops, Feige said no swear words or something like that. One thing I didn't like, and it may surprise you, I didn't like the fourth wall breaking in the Marvel thing. I didn't like all the Feige says this, Feige says, and the Avengers. I found it weird, and it was just very different. I don't know if it works with the MCU the way it did with Deadpool's movies. How'd you find that?
I don't mind it.
You don't
I
mind it?
mean, obviously Deadpool's known for his fourth wall breaking, and he's coming back into the MCU, so he had to make some sort of jokes here and there.
Mhm.
So I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I mean, obviously some of those jokes were really, really bad, like really, really bad.
Yeah.
But then a lot of them were pretty good.
Mhm.
They hit well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. What else to cover for this one? I mean, there's just a lot to really talk about.
Mhm.
I think one for me is, going back to Feige's comments about how important this is. I feel like that comment, yeah, that's something that I feel that we'll get a sense of in hindsight rather than now. Because I think we can both agree that we didn't really feel the MCU's importance on this film.
Yeah, no.
But maybe when we look back, we'll see it. Feige has said that this will start the mutant era of that. So I think that's when it comes to the ramifications of the MCU. I think that's really where it's going to lie.
Mhm.
But yeah, one thing that we've always been complaining about with everything past Endgame is that there's no relevance. Nothing connects. Nothing. You don't feel that larger MCU storyline building up as what we saw through Phase 1, 2, and
Mhm.
3. Do you think this one is a step in the right direction for Marvel in the future of the MCU?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it still didn't build towards anything really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about the end of the movie, it's just pretty much back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
And what Avengers 5 comes out 26.
Yeah.
So essentially, they have next year to build towards an Avengers movie,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't really feel like as if it's justified at this point. Um, so I was sort of hoping it might be that post credit scene,
Yeah.
that might be the linkage.
Got cut.
It was so bizarre because the credits started rolling and me and James were gonna like look out for who played Lady Deadpool, and then it just cut out, and we're like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then we're like, "No, it has to be a mistake." So we ran into because there was two screenings,
Yeah.
and we ran into the other one, and it cut there as well. And we're like, "No, it has to be done on purpose.
Yeah.
There's no way, absolutely no way they would do that."
Well, I'm seeing a public screening tonight, so I'm going to go and see it. I'm going to see if it is that important. But yeah, no, this one, I think it's a step in the right direction. If I had to, I guess, classify or compare it to Marvel, and I guess this is the last part that we'll cover before we end the review off, I would say this is kind of what that Phase 3 felt like, where all those movies were good, they were consistent, but some of them weren't always great. I don't find this to be a great movie, but it's a good MCU movie.
Mhm.
It's MCU on form, but you're not going to get that top 5 or even top 10 MCU at this point. But it is in the better half of what MCU is, and definitely top three since Endgame.
Oh, yeah, well, that's easy, yeah, for
You
sure.
got No Way Home, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Yeah, and then I think
Nice.
Deadpool and Wolverine slots in third,
Yeah.
or perhaps fourth. I gotta see that, but I've forgotten everything. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What did you think of the cameos compared to Multiverse of Madness?
Better, much better. And I'm gonna watch how I say and what I say with this one to avoid spoilers. But in terms of cameos in this and those big surprises, they use them more than what Multiverse of Madness did, and it feels like it has a little bit more weight on the story and the narrative than what Multiverse of Madness and whatever they did. I still don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's the best use of cameos. I think Spider-Man No Way Home, not mastered, but it came damn near close to mastering how cameos and multiverse things should feel in a solo movie. They were very integral to the growth of Spider-Man and Peter Parker and the story as a whole. And we saw Tom Holland's Peter Parker become Spider-Man essentially from those villains and learning of their past mistakes. So we don't get anything like that. It's not as good as No Way Home. I don't. There's no doubt about that in my mind. What did you think? Do you think they were good?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
well.
thoroughly enjoyed them.
They're super entertaining.
They
Yeah.
are awesome, especially that one sequence where they just all come. It was cool.
Yeah. No, I think they used much better. I think Multiverse Madness, it felt a little bit awkward.
It did. Like
yeah.
the only real cameo in that one would have been John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, like
Yep.
the proper cameo.
Yeah, the one where kind of everyone wanted but
Yeah.
was expecting. Yeah, the other ones were just kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like Captain Carter,
Yeah.
Charles Xavier. Yeah, this one uses it better than Multiverse of Madness. So rest assured, we got a good multiverse movie finally. I don't know what the next multiverse movie is going to be. I don't even know. Oh, Captain America.
Fantastic Four.
Yeah. But before we wrap things off, MCU does have a Comic-Con, big Hall H presentation, supposedly. And me and Anne are going to be covering it. We're going to be kind of dissecting it. From what I hear, they're going to be showing us the new slate, even though they already did that. But obviously, Jonathan Major's punchline killed that. So now they have to change everything. And we're going to see what that is. We'll probably find out who the villain's going to be. We're going to find out when it's going to release. And hopefully a lot of bits and bobs, if it's worth covering, me and Nan are going to be covering it. As for you not being able to see us right now, sorry about that. Our beautiful faces will be on camera once again once we figure it out. But for now, we're just going to try and work on getting a good setup and seeing what that looks like. So for now, just stick with us on the potty, stick with us on wherever you pod from. We'll see if I can get some videos up for this. Otherwise, yeah, it's just going to be on the podcast for a little bit of time. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time. Keep bringing the hype. Peace.
Not yet, though, because we have to tell our scores.
I always forget scores. Scores are so hard to do. All right. Scores. I'm just going to go with a clean 7 out of 10.
Nice. I was thinking the same.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
All right. I forgot about the scores. I'm a little bit rusty. I've had a multi-week break here, so I won't be forgetting that again. Otherwise, I'll say my goodbye again. Keep bringing the hype. Peace.
See ya.